Welcome back. Debt seems to be an issue facing Canadians across the board. According to BMO's 2015 credit card report, nearly half of all Canadian credit card holders carry credit card debt. Why has credit card debt become such a major issue? To help us answer some of these questions, we are joined by our returning guests from last week, Ahmad Munawar and Saeed Ally, co-hosts of Rizqwise, a show to help Muslims make smarter financial decisions. Saeed Ally is a certified financial planner. He helps clients engineer financial plans to achieve their goals. Ahmad Munawar is a chartered accountant and currently runs a marketing agency for professional services and consulting firms. Let's hear what they have to say about dealing with credit card debt. Ahmad, Saeed, welcome to the show.
Great to be here.
Glad to be back.
So we had you guys on last week to talk about Rizqwise and your online podcast where you help Muslims and I think the broader community as well make smarter financial decisions.
Right.
Today I'm really excited because we're going into a specific topic. So I know you guys have quite a few segments on debt. So it's a very big term. Do you guys get a lot of questions on debt from your viewers?
Absolutely. I think by far, in a way, it is the biggest, most commonly asked question. And sometimes we get very short questions, like when people subscribe to our email list, the first email that they receive ends with, "What's your biggest financial problem?" And sometimes the reply is OSAP or credit cards, and that's it. But sometimes we get paragraphs from people who kind of detail out their whole life story and what led them to the position that they're in. And I'd say 90% is debt.
Yeah.
And of
90% of all of the questions you guys receive are related to debt.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So you would think that a personal finance show, website, podcast would focus a lot on Islamic investment vehicles, Islamic finance. We really don't touch on that very much at all. We made that conscious decision before we started, but then that was reinforced with the questions that we were receiving. Most of it was debt, and then most of the debt questions are credit cards and student loans, which matches our demographic. Mm-hmm. We do speak to a younger population, probably under 35.
And it's not entirely surprising because if you look at the average household debt in Canada, in the US, and really in most kind of Western democratic nations, it's through the roof, right?
Yeah.
The levels of debt that we're all experiencing at individual levels, household levels, and even at a national level, right, is unprecedented. So
Well, there's also a reality show on TLC called, I think,
Till
about
Death Do Us
marriage.
Part.
Yes, there you
Right.
go. So
Great
I mean,
show.
yeah.
Gail is very, very brilliant in how she portrays the struggle that people have with money and in how you should combat that. In our budgeting series, we actually do talk about her methodology along with a couple others. But yeah, it's great. I think she's great. I think it's a great show and it's doing good things.
Yeah.
I've bought her book for clients.
Well, I think and the point I'm trying to highlight with that as well is it's just such a,
Yeah.
like you guys said, it's such a big issue. Now, I know one question for you guys. So obviously your target audience is Muslims. Why is debt in some ways more of an issue for Muslims?
yeah, I think there's a couple of really important reasons. First of all, the topic of debt, if you look at the different sayings in the Quran and from the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings upon him, you'll find a very clear, not prohibition when it comes to debt, but a warning against going into debt. And the reason for that is really, there's a few good reasons. One is that when you're indebted to man, you will be hindered on your path to God, right? So the idea is that human beings should only be indebted to God and only be in servitude towards him. But when you're indebted to man, that's a form of servitude, right? And the second reason is that being indebted to somebody means that you're in need of them, right? And we find this over and over again in the saying to the Prophet Muhammad is that earning money and earning a livelihood is important because you want to be free of the need of other people. In other words, financial independence, right? And debt is a form of dependence.
And financial independence actually is the base upon which we talk about a lot of the things that we speak about. Because as Muslims, whether we're talking about debt or other personal finance topics, if you look at other personal finance experts out there online, and there's a lot. I mean, this is a very well-covered topic in books, audio, even other podcasts and TV shows, as you mentioned. One of the things that we bring to the table is that we're not here to try and teach people how to be rich. We're not just here to pursue wealth and pursue unboundful, like limitless amounts of wealth and money and, designer this and that. That's not the premise that we speak about when we say you need to be responsible with your money. It's not be responsible with your money so you can ball out of control. right? That's not our premise. It's be responsible with your money so that you don't have to be dependent upon people, upon others, whether they're people that you're indebted to, whether it's your parents because you're unable to provide for yourself, whether you're dependent upon your kids in your old age, which, part of our religion is to take care of our parents, absolutely. But I've never met in my professional career an older individual, 60 plus, who has told me, I am very happy to be dependent on my kids. They don't want to be. Nobody wants to be. If you end up being, that's fair. But because, immigrants have a very big struggle of setting themselves up, but nobody plans on that. Nobody desires that. So being free of the dependence of others is a big part of what we do as personal finance, because it's a big part of the motivation for Muslims to be good with their money.
So why is it so easy for people to get into debt? And I'm thinking, credit card is one thing that comes to mind. Why is it so easy and so common, you guys think, especially nowadays?
Because the entire system is engineered to get you into debt.
Yes.
Right? We have,
Now that sounds a little conspiracy theorist, but hear us out.
Sounds very intense.
And it's not a theory, nor is it a conspiracy, right?
Yeah.
Is that, we live in Canada, in Toronto, where the Toronto Stock Exchange is about 50% financial services. 50% or so?
I think that's a bit high. I think it's a little bit high.
At least 40%?
I think it's just under 40. We have a lot of resources and minerals. But
the financial services industry
huge.
Is a major driving force in our economy, right? We've got the big banks, and what are they pushing? They're pushing credit cards, they're pushing lines of credit, they're pushing all these forms of debt. Right?
I mean, as a business, they're trying to make profit, right? So how does a bank earn profit? Well, they take in deposits and they give out loans, but that's kind of boring. Like if you only had one line of credit that you had and you had one bank account, it's very easy as an individual to just, okay, I have one line of credit, I have one bank account, I can manage those two very easily. But there's a drive in the financial industry to just have everybody to have multiple accounts. Everybody should have 3 credit cards. Everybody should have a savings account or 3 savings accounts, checking accounts, multiple checking accounts, joint checking accounts, multiple lines of credit, secured, unsecured, mortgages, just lots and lots and lots of different accounts to make it kind of difficult for you to manage. But that's just a business driving force. How can we make more money per customer? But what's more insidious from an individual's level, from you and I, like we can talk about the system and rail against the machine. I tend personally not to go there because I think that there are things that we do that are bad for ourselves. And we can understand how the system is designed, how it's bad for us, and then combat that.
So give me an example.
Credit cards. Great example because it's so easy. It's so easy to use them, and it's getting easier and easier and easier. We've talked about this on the show, right?
Yeah.
How did it start? How did credit cards?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I'm going to go against the system again. No, but if you look at how credit cards were invented, right, and the cultural shift that's taken place since then,
right.
50, 60 years ago, nobody used credit cards, right?
That's true, yeah.
Wherever you went, you paid cash, right? If you had cash in your pocket, you bought something. If you didn't have cash, you couldn't buy anything, right?
And that's a huge problem for retailers. I have this thing that you want. You want it. I have it to sell. You're okay with the price. You just didn't bring your change purse.
Yeah.
Man, what an inconvenience.
That did happen to me a lot when I was younger with my parents.
Yeah. So the Diners Club was the first, retailer to think of this idea of the credit card. They said, look, we've got all these customers that come back and forth, and we know a lot of them. Like they come in all the time, right? So why don't we let them set up some kind of a tab, right, where we're tracking how much they spend. Then at the end of the month, they come in and they settle.
And the danger individually that we try to address in the show is that if you've never had credit card debt before, you might not understand this problem. But if you've ever had 1 month where you couldn't pay off your bill in full, it is very easy for the second month to, again, not pay it off in full. And then it's easy on the third month to not pay it off in full. And then by then it's just normal to be carrying a balance. If it was $500 in month 1 and it's $550, then $600, before you know it, it's $1,000. And it's so easy to make that a habit. So people tend to wake up or they listen to our podcast and they email us saying, $10,000 credit cards, $30,000 credit cards.
So what are some practical, steps or advice that you give to people who've emailed you and I'm sure watching our show, who may have debt?
I'm a bit more extreme. So I would say with credit cards in particular, if you've ever experienced a time where you opened up your credit card statement and you were surprised by the number, you have a credit card problem, even if you paid it off.
And that's got to be, 99% of people.
That's me too. I'm
and
feeling a little...
if that's you, your credit card should stay at home. And if it's really bad, you shouldn't have one.
Okay, I was waiting for him to get there. Shred it.
Well, the moment you start carrying a balance without paying it off,
Yeah.
you should not have a credit card.
Yeah.
If you feel like you're spending more than you otherwise would, and that's proven, by the way, there have been studies that showed
Yes.
that people who carry credit cards spend more money than people who pay in cash.
And there's studies that
It's a
show
fact.
people who have points on their credit card spend significantly more than people who do not have points on their credit card. And I won't get into that discussion today, but we rail about that as well.
So if you want to spend less, you keep your cards at home. If you have a credit card balance that's not paid off, you cut it up.
Well, I don't think I would take it one. Actually, I'm actually taking this one step more extreme than you. That's odd. I don't think it's if you want to spend less, you should leave your credit card at home. If you carry a balance on your credit card or on high interest, any kind of high interest consumer debt, lines of credits, even maybe student loans that have rolled into lines of credits. If you have high interest debt, it's not a matter of you wanting to spend less. You need to spend less. In our culture, we don't really talk about debt or money. Like as Muslims, we don't engage in interest. We try as much as possible to stay away from it. Credit cards having such an enormous interest rate, nobody wants to admit that as a Muslim who's supposed to stay away from interest, period, has a balance on a 30% credit card. Nobody wants to admit that. But the majority of our questions are exactly that. We have debt at a high interest rate. And there's a gap in our community where people aren't actually addressing what to do if you're in that situation. So one thing that we really try to do is we don't want to make our listeners feel bad. If you have debt and you're hearing, let's say, a message from the sermons talking about how people shouldn't have debt, Muslims shouldn't be engaging in interest, we know people already have that. We know you know that. We know you've heard about it. We know you feel bad. I'm not going to add to that. We're not going to make you feel worse because I know that already feels pretty terrible. What we're going to do is we're going to address this topic that nobody in our community is and actually talk about how to get out of it.
We'll put on links on our show. Thank you so much. We are out of time, but this was definitely a very interesting conversation. Thanks so much for coming on our show.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Hey YouTube, we hope you benefited from this video. If you liked it, or if you didn't, let us know in the comments below. And if you're interested in learning more, check out some of our other videos. And don't forget to subscribe so you can get new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.